Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Tuesday, August the 7th, 2018, 4 p.m., your second daily dose of happy for the day. And I have to say I'm a little bit late running the show here, so my apologies, Wendy, for keeping you waiting, but I have the only excuse I have to offer is I have no excuse. So that's the way it is. Sorry.
I accept that one. I accept that excuse. That's the best kind.
That's the best kind, right? I have no excuse
whatsoever. Because
whatsoever.
that's saying you're not making excuses.
No,
I'm
not.
that.
Actually, I was reading, believe it or not, I was reading on Facebook. Joel Elston posted something really kind of humorous. Well, the humorous part was actually posted by one of his followers. Joel posted, he's pursuing a PhD in, I can't remember exactly what the field name is, but basically it's all of the alternative spirituality stuff. I can't think what they're calling it, but it's a very common name, and as soon as I find it and say it, you'll say, "Oh yeah, of course," but I can't remember what the name is, so we'll just forget that part. But the point is,
I wonder if it's the same as mine because I'm working on a doctorate in metaphysical science.
It is metaphysical, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember what the exact word was, but yes, it's metaphysical.
Got it.
But anyway, as part of his studies, his class was going to be watching. They were going to be observing an experiment that was being performed in a dental office where a patient was going to be under root canal work, having root canal work done, but without being under an anesthetic. Instead, they were going to use hypnotherapy to stop the pain. And as soon as I saw that, I immediately thought about your firewalks. And I said, well, it's got to be the same kind of thing going on there. And he got a lot of comments, people saying, oh my God, how can you do that? All that kind of thing. And my response was, oh, ho hum, I'm not really impressed by that. Tell me about an experiment where they use the law of attraction to prevent the root canal altogether. Then I'll be really impressed at that point. But no, that doesn't impress me. But one of his other followers posted something really, really clever. He said, so the patient opted for transcendental medication.
That's good.
That's cute.
Transcendental medication.
Medication.
I like that.
Isn't that good? I like that. That's really good. So that was picking me up.
That's cute.
So if you're going to have a reason for not showing up on time for a podcast, I think that's a pretty good one, don't you think?
Oh, because you were so busy in his Facebook
Exactly.
stuff?
I was enjoying that post so much.
All right. I take it all back. No, that excuse doesn't fly.
That doesn't work. Oh, okay.
You were spending time with another one of your co-hosts.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I have to admit.
I will say in line of the idea of it, the patient going under hypnosis, when I was in one of my certification programs, I mean, I am a certified hypnotist, or actually certified in hypnotherapy. Don't know if there's a difference in words, but it's not something that I practice in terms of I don't open my shingle and say, hey, come to me and I'll do a hypnosis session. But I certainly understand it, and I never practiced it long enough to say like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this stuff. But part of to get our certification, we had to undergo this last little piece where, let's see, how do I describe it? You have to take somebody, and I did my husband, who was about 6'5", 260 pounds. Not a small person, right?
No.
And there's like a series of 4 chairs, and he lays on it like that's a couch, right? And so I do my hypnosis protocol, and we have it set where like his head is on one end and his feet are on the other, but like the bulk of his weight is really on the 2 chairs in the middle.
Got it. Yeah, I see where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I do my hypnosis thing, and we pull out one of the chairs in the middle, and then we pull out another chair in the middle. And the interesting thing is his body never sagged. And it's like, whoa. And so I got certified because I was able to put him under hypnosis in a way that he didn't fall, his body didn't sag. I was able to like create some auto suggestions, so he like did the things, that I had prompted him to do. And then I took him out of hypnosis. We slid the chairs back under because as soon as hypnosis is over, he would have fallen to the ground. And then, of course, somebody had to do the same thing to me.
Right. Okay.
And what I know about being under hypnosis is, first of all, it's not heebie-jeebie weird like people might think it is. It's very real, but when you're when you're in deep hypnosis, you're in a really deep trance state, but all of your senses are actually heightened. And this is where people who don't take the time to really understand hypnosis don't understand what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm.
But when your senses are so heightened, you actually have greater awareness of things than when you are not in trance state.
Okay.
So like when you're not in trance state, you can only pay attention to so many things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in a trance state, you're aware of everything, including the white noise. And you're aware of people talking, you're aware of conversations, you're aware of what's being asked of you, being aware of your own inner thoughts. And you actually have that's considered a greater level of control than when you're not in trance state at all.
Interesting.
You can that's the state where you make changes. You know, if you want to make internal changes, that's why hypnosis can be so powerful for people. But because I experienced it, I did recognize the things that I was being trained in, which is when I was in a deep hypnotic trance, I knew when the chairs were being pulled out from under me, but I also didn't feel this sense of, oh my God, I have to tense my body to make sure I don't fall. I was like so relaxed, and you'd think if you're relaxed, your body would fall down, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And it very similar to when you were saying, like when I did the fire walks, there is something very powerful about letting your mind go into that state. And something I never did share with you the day I was talking about the fire walks, because I've heard you on other shows with some of the other co-hosts saying, and I mean, Wendy's done 4 of these fire walks. And you and the other co-hosts are like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. But I'll tell you the reason why I did it, because this to me is like the big aha of my life. I felt, because I had such a huge fear of not being able to do it successfully and burning my tootsies big time,
mm-hmm.
I felt convinced that if I could do a fire walk successfully, that would give me the evidence to let me know that my mind has such a level of powerful control that even if I didn't know how to tap into it consciously yet, that there was a level of control that was available to me, and I wanted to know more about it.
And I presume that you concluded that, yes, you do have that.
I do. And when I say today I'm a magical being or I'm a powerful being, it's because I know that I have the ability to tap into that infinite powerfulness that is inside this skull. And maybe others would conclude it's outside. Maybe the mind is not all inside the brain. But wherever the mind is, wherever it resides, I know I have a level of control over it that I did not have once upon a time.
And you attribute that to the fact that you had these experiences with hypnotherapy.
Well, with the fire walks, because
the fire walks also had a hypnotherapy element to that. If I understood the story correctly, it was like you were under a hypnotic trance. I couldn't get the word out.
Yeah, it was totally a hypnotic trance,
mm-hmm.
but it was a choice-filled hypnotic trance. No
mm-hmm.
one put me under the trance. I mean, I followed along with Tony's meditative program, but what I thought was so fascinating is that, okay, so we were under his meditative program, let's say for an hour, but then we had to get up from the ballroom, put our coats on, put our shoes on, walk outside, talk to people. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not in a trance anymore. I'm like just chatting with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it was time to get in line and do it, it was like, boom, I put myself back in trance state.
Really?
In other words, Tony taught it to us, but he wasn't there yelling over a PA to however many hundreds of people who were doing the fire walk. We all, went out of the hotel room on our own. If we wanted to get a drink of water, we could, and then you land in the parking lot where they have the fire walk set up. But I'm the one, and every other person in that fire who was out in that parking lot put themselves back into the hypnotic trance state in order to do the firewalk.
That's interesting.
And to me, that was what was so fascinating.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't know what that experience would feel like when I was doing it, I had an internal knowing beforehand that after I come out of that, having done that experience, my life would change forever because I would have an understanding of what was possible that prior to doing the firewalk, I didn't believe was possible. People would tell me how powerful I could be, but I didn't really believe it. So having done a firewalk 4 times, because, I don't like evidence once. I like it multiple
This is true. Well, you do everything multiple times. You listen to Abraham 3 or 4 times. I mean, you're a multiple times person.
I love the multiplicity of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, 4 times I've done a firewalk, 3 10-foot walks and 1 40-foot walk. And, having come across it, doing it, celebrating on the other side, I put myself in those trance states. I have a level of control over my mind, and I know it's mine.
That raises the question then. How long do you continue to maintain that ability to instantly put yourself into trance state, or how long did that last?
For as long as the firewalk lasted. So in other words, if it was for 40 feet, as soon as you finish the last part and you step on grass, or sometimes it was in a parking lot, sometimes it was in grass. Like when we did it in Hawaii, it was on grass. Mm-hmm. Then you have people from the Tony Robbins team spraying your feet with cold water to make certain that if there were any little coal embers between your toes, that when you popped out of state, you wouldn't get burned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was out of the hypnosis trance on the other side of the firewalk.
So you have not gone back into that trance since then. That was basically the end.
Well, for that session. Have I put myself back? Are you asking, have I put myself back in hypnotic trance?
Because you've already described how you put yourself into trance in order to do the walk after being taught how to do it. I'm wondering, do you still do that?
Probably not with that same intention in mind, because I don't have hot coals that I purposely have myself walk all over.
True. Yeah, that's true.
I think the best way I can answer that is I think I go in and out of a hypnotic trance on a pretty regular basis, as do we all.
Elaborate on that.
Well, so like, for instance, okay, right now we're talking.
Okay.
We're in what's called alpha state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which has to do with the brain waves
mm-hmm.
on which we're speaking. So we're in alpha state.
Okay.
Am I going to say these right? There's alpha, beta. No, we're in beta. Excuse me. We're in what's called beta talk. So like the most conscious state is beta. Then let's say you get kind of sleepy and you just kind of let your eyes go a little drowsy and you close your eyes and you take a couple deep breaths,
mm-hmm.
most likely you have achieved alpha.
Okay.
Which is a very light trance state. And in that state, you feel more relaxed, more comfortable, and you're not nearly as tense as you are or you can be when you're in beta state. Then let's say you're going further into you're getting to the point you're heading towards sleep, like where you're about to fall asleep, but you're not totally asleep.
Yep.
I used to do power naps in this state, and this was something I did purposefully. Like when I was a costume designer and I'd get really sluggish, when I was fatigued when I was driving, I'd pull over to a Walmart parking lot and I would set my something for 10 minutes and I'd have the radio on and I would just put the seat back and I'd fall asleep. Now, I was sleeping. It felt like I was sleeping, but I was also aware of the radio playing. I was aware if sirens went by. I could hear it all, but I was in such a deep, relaxed state that I was getting refreshing in my body. Now, that to me is the same level as the hypnotic trance state,
okay,
which is called theta.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where hypnotists put people into theta brainwave states.
Okay.
So, you're asking, do I do it on purpose? Yeah. When I want to take a power nap and I don't have an alarm clock and I say I'm going to wake up in 10 minutes, I did it over and over and over. I absolutely would fall asleep into the deepest theta state. I wasn't in delta where I was like out like a light.
Mm-hmm.
I was hearing, I was aware, but yet I was in a place of refreshing. And within 10 minutes, I promise you, my body would pop up. I'd look at my watch and go, yep, it's been 10 minutes. It's time to get back on the road.
And theta
So
was
yeah, I was doing that purposely.
and theta was the state that you walked coals.
Yes.
Yes. No.
I'm
Maybe.
not quite sure.
Oh.
I'm not quite sure if it was. I'm not exactly where it was. I just knew that I was cognizant of what I was doing. My eyes were wide open. I knew I had choice to jump off the hot coals or to stay on them. I was aware of what I was doing while I was doing it. But it was a very deep level of trance. Where exactly I was in the brainwaves, don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a fourth state called delta, and that's where you're pretty much out like a light, and you're not really aware of what's going on in the room.
Yeah, not consciously responsive.
Yeah, that's where if like somebody shakes you, you like startle yourself awake because you really weren't aware of what was going on.
Right.
But so to answer your question, do I go there purposefully? Yes. I don't think of it in terms of, I think I'm going to put myself in a hypnotic trance. But the reason I said we all go through these things almost every day, I purposely described some scenarios that most of us can relate to.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
But if we're not aware of what's going on when we're doing it, we don't necessarily correlate it to what happens under, quote, hypnosis, or what happens when a person walks across hot coals, or what happens when a person does a karate chop and breaks a board in two, or breaks a cinder block in two. All of those things require immense trance-like states. Because I've done the board breaking exercise, and I got to tell you, it hurts like hell when you're not under trance.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Because all you're doing is hitting a board really hard with the side of your hand.
Yeah.
And I was at another event, and I was doing that, and I tried it 3 times, and each time I just hit the board and nothing happened except I got in pain.
Mm.
And I had all these people around me kind of coaching me like, you can do it, you can do it. And there was so much noise in the room because there were many people doing this. I looked at like, quote, my team of people that were there to support me. And my coach in particular was trying to tell me what to do and what to think. And I looked at him and I just said, shut up. I'll do it myself. Because I recognized I was so focused on what they were telling me, I wasn't going inside and going into the trance state. Like Esther goes into a trance state when she brings in Abraham. And so it was funny because when I said shut up, they all like freaked out. They didn't expect that out of me because I don't say shut up.
Well, it's probably an effective way to just stop the whole thing so you can get back to the control you need to have.
And so I have 2 people in front of me, each one holding a side of the board. And I just went deep within. And it's like I kind of said to my inner being, even though I didn't talk to my inner being the same way, I just kind of said, let me know when I'm ready. And I breathed. And I had a sense of readiness. It wasn't like the earth shattered or there was a giant bell that went off. It was just an internal knowing, I'm ready. And this time when I did it, I didn't try to use force. I focused on harnessing all my power into my right hand, where I was going to touch the board. And I focused on my power being right there. And when I hit the board, it shattered in 2 and there was no pain in my hand. And I went, damn, I did it. And I knew I didn't do it because, quote, they told me when I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And, this was kind of the thing I learned over and over, even with the fire walks. Because with the fire walk, they had people who were calibrating me to make sure I was ready. And my very first fire walk, when the gal touched my shoulder to let me know it was time to go, I said, no, I'll know when it's time. I mean, this has kind of been a theme in my life.
Yeah, really. It does seem to be consistent from one event to the next. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
And
why
so,
do you?
like the other fire walks, when they told me to go, I was ready. Like
I see.
I knew I was ready, and I was like, okay, they can touch my arm now, and boom, they did, and I walked.
So no
So they might
resistance.
have thought
Yeah.
they cued me, but I'm the one who cued myself every single time.
Which makes sense.
But having done all these experiences has allowed me to have an awareness of the power of our mind. And it showed me the power of my mind and how I do know how to tap into that level of power and control.
And that actually leads to the question I was going to start asking before, but this is the perfect time to do it. Why do you think it is that when you get into that state where you're able to walk across coals or break a board with your hand and not feel the pain, why don't we feel the pain? Why doesn't the skin burn on the bottom of your feet? Do you have any clear idea on that?
I believe that we have sent a message with clear intention, even if we don't say the words, that our body knows the purpose for that which we're doing, what we're doing. And so if you think about it, we have pain receptors that send us messages, hey, something bad happened, you need to take care of it. And I really believe that when we go into this trance with a purpose, let's say of walking on hot coals, we know we're walking on hot coals. So our body doesn't need to send us a signal letting us know, hey, you just burned your foot. Because I believe our body turns off the pain receptors so that we don't burn our foot. And I think that's part of the powerfulness of our mind, where we are including our body, even if we don't specifically state it, but we all work together, our mind and our body and our being as one, to accomplish the things that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, that makes sense in terms of trying to understand why there's no pain. I mean, that part I can actually buy into. The part that I still can't quite reconcile is the mind is so powerful, it's actually preventing the burn. It's preventing the skin from reacting in a burn modality. It's preventing the bones of the hand from fracturing. And that part is like, that's to me the really interesting part. It's one thing to stop the pain. It's another thing to stop the physical damage.
Well, and I think they all kind of go together, and I don't understand enough about how the human body works.
Yeah.
But I believe that, our mind is so powerful that I was sending signals, and I will tell you, when I tapped the board the last time when I broke it, I did not hit it. I tapped it.
It's interesting that you say that. And the reason I say this is I suspect I probably had a successful experiment with this without realizing what it was I was experimenting with. For the longest time, I played golf. I haven't played golf in years, but I used to play golf quite a bit. And I remember one time I was out on a golf course. I was playing by myself. There was nobody else around for many holes in either direction. I mean, it was that kind of an empty day, right? And I come to this one hole. It's a rather short par 4, about 300 yards. And I was playing with wooden clubs. I've never played with metal drivers and so forth like they play with today. This was back in the day of wooden clubs. And the fairway had been marked out for what was clearly a ball driving contest. You could see where it's marked out for 200, 220, 240, 250, 260, 270, where all the lines were, and they had numbers and so forth. So clearly they'd had a driving contest there. And I said, well, this is kind of fun. I wonder how far I actually drive the ball. And of course, as soon as I said that, I wanted to drive it as far as I possibly could, right? Well, there was nobody around. And so I could just take all the time in the world. There was no pressure, right? I could just take as much time as I wanted. So I literally went through the best prep I'd ever done getting ready to drive a golf ball. And I decided I was going to try to use, even though I knew nothing about it, I was going to try to use what I had heard that karate experts use or any kind of martial artist uses, where they try to channel the ki or the chi. And I was going to try to channel that into my hands. And so I just lined up. I got myself very relaxed, and I focused on getting all my energy down into my hands. I also wanted to make sure I didn't grip the club real tight, because that's always a killer. You have to hold it. I like the way that they expressed it in the movie The Greatest Game Ever Played, because the young protagonist meets the great British golfer Harry Vardon in a special presentation that Varden did at a department store while he was touring in the United States, and in the movie, Varden teaches the young boy how to hit using what is known as the Varden grip, which is used today by all golfers. I mean, what this guy invented was the grip that everybody uses today. And as he's explaining to the boy, he says, "Have you ever held a live bird in your hand?" And the boy says, "Yes." He says, "Hold on just enough to keep the bird from flying away, but not enough to squeeze and hurt the bird." And that's really the way you're supposed to hold a golf club. You're supposed to hold it lightly, just enough to keep it from flying out of your hands, but you don't want to grip it real hard because that takes away from the power of your swing. So I was focusing on that. I was focusing on getting my energy into my hands. And I could actually feel like there was some energy going on there. And then I took a very long swing. Of course, I'm a very tall person anyway, so long is normal for me. But I took a very long swing, both in arc and in speed, and very deliberately went through the swing, not really, really hard, but I could feel the energy of the swing come through. And with a wooden driver, I hit that ball almost to the green, almost 300 yards. Now, I had never hit a ball that far before. And it was fun, too, because it was one of those things where you get a really high arcing shot and it just goes on and on forever. It was like it was floating in the air, So it was a really cool experience. But when it was all done, I realized I hadn't hit the ball hard. And that's what it made me think of when you said what you just said, that it didn't feel like...
I tapped the board.
It was a tap, yeah. Yeah, I can't say it was a tap. I mean, I could definitely feel that there was power going on there, but I wasn't trying to be powerful. I wasn't trying to hit the ball or something like that.
Yeah, you weren't efforting with a thrusting kind of pushing swing.
And in fact, I was actually trying to hold on. I could feel the club going out of my hands.
Swing through. Isn't that the idea? You just want to have a fluid swing through.
Yeah, it's that swing through also means you do your follow through, so you swing all the way through to the end. But it's both. You're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and this brings up a really cool thing I'd love to share because it has to do with the power of our mind. And, when I say the power of the mind, I'm also saying the power of the vibration, because our mind, when I'm saying that, it really has to do with the thoughts that I'm thinking. And when the thoughts are really pure, without static, in other words, they're so focused on pure positive energy or on a pure intention, without any distraction of, oh, what if, or thoughts, doubts, and worry, some kinds of thoughts. That pure thought has such incredible power that it can do amazing things. So this last Friday, my little sister was over to the house and we were spending time together. And I had stepped out of the room for a moment. When I came back, she was laying on the couch, stomach down. And I thought, oh, she's just kind of tired. And I said, hey, what's up with you laying on the couch? And she goes, oh, my God, my back hurts so bad. Mm. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah, this has been going on for a while, and it's getting worse and worse. And so, she goes, I don't know what this means, because I have taught her how every physical ailment, everything outside of us that happens occurs because it represents some kind of message. And it's our job to figure out the message. Mm-hmm. So I'm really proud of her because she was like, I'm trying to figure out the message, but I really don't know what it is. So we started playing around with a couple ideas. And I said, well, where exactly is the pain? And she kind of pointed to it. And I said, my understanding is the center of our back generally represents support. So can you think of any area of your life that maybe you don't feel supported? Mm. And I could tell she was thinking. And as she was thinking, totally unaware, like I didn't do it on purpose, all of a sudden I started getting this feeling of incredible sadness and grief.
Wow.
And I just said, oh, I hope you're getting to it quickly because I'm now tapped into what you're feeling. And it's really sad. And I looked at her and her eyes were filled with tears.
Why?
And I'm like, okay, well, you're there. So what are the thoughts that go along with those
right.
tears? And she said, it has to do with money. And see, her husband passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And she said it had been our financial plan because he made probably maybe 2/3 of their income. Mm-hmm. She had a job with a 401k, and so she had lesser income but had the retirement piece. and he had more income, but he didn't have much retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of their balance in how they did their income.
Right.
And she said they had come to this idea that they wanted to get their finances settled in such a way that they would live off of his income, and all of her income would go into savings and retirement. Well, once he passed, obviously his income was now lost to her.
Right.
And he had a very, very small 401k and a very small retirement, insurance. And so, he's been gone over 2 years, and that money, that excess money is now gone because it's how she lived. And so anyway, she was in tears over, I don't know what to do now, because not only is that quote dream lost to me because my husband's gone and I don't have his income, but she said, I don't know how to live on my income because it was never sufficient for our lifestyle.
Mm.
And I had been saying to her literally ever since her husband transitioned that, one, she learned how to be incredibly powerful through the whole 17 days of him being in the hospital and that whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And she really started to mature on a spiritual level during that time that he was still alive, but in and out of consciousness. And when it was done and he had transitioned, I really sensed that this was going to be an opportunity for her to recognize that the things that were important to her, like her finances, didn't have to be something that she personally controlled, but that if she found a trust in her inner being and in the universe to support her, she would be supported in a way that was beyond anything that she or her husband would have done together, because they were looking at their physical money and their ability to work in order to create their finances. And
Makes
I said,
sense.
I know that the universe can move beyond what we see in the natural. And so I was reminding her of this. And I said, are you trusting in only your ability to work for money? She said, yeah. And I said, well, I believe the message with your back being in so much pain is your inner being's way of saying, hey, I want to help. There's so much support and help for you that's beyond you having to do it all. And if you can let go of your feeling you have to do it all, abundance in monetary ways are going to open up to you beyond your wildest dreams. So at that point, she kind of cried even harder, because it's like, wow, that was a really wonderful idea.
Sure, yeah, I can understand that.
And so, we talked for a little bit longer. And when we were done talking, I said, how are you feeling about that whole situation now? She goes, well, I do feel more hopeful. I don't know that I'm completely there, but I'm feeling better about it. And I said, okay. And I said, when you have completely changed your thoughts, where you're no longer feeling, like verklempt, you're no longer feeling hopeless over your financial situation and you have to do it all, I said, then the back pain will go away. Because the purpose of the physical back pain was only to get your attention.
Well, it worked.
And so I said, let me know what happens. So that was Friday night. She calls me today, maybe an hour or so before this podcast. And she goes, oh my God, I have to tell you something really cool. I said, what happened? She goes, Saturday morning when I woke up, I noticed that my back didn't hurt.
Oh, that's good.
And I mean, it had been hurting day after day after day after day, and it kept getting worse and worse.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, but it didn't hurt. She goes, but I don't want to call and tell you yet, because you never know. And I was just afraid, well, maybe it'll hurt later. So she said,
funny.
Sunday, it didn't hurt. Monday, it didn't hurt. And she goes, this is really the first chance I've had to call you. But she goes, it hasn't hurt since when I woke up on Saturday. And I said, well, what's your new belief about money? And she's like, well, I don't really know how money's going to flow into my world, but I don't really care. I know it's going to happen, and I don't even have to know how.
Oh,
I
nice.
just believe it will. I'm like, nice job.
Yeah, that's a big transition right there.
But to me, that's the power of our thinking. She changed her thinking so dramatically that pretty much instantaneously, and I'd say from Friday night until Saturday morning, that's pretty instantaneous when you've had a really powerfully bad backache,
Oh, yeah.
for that pain to like, boom, be gone. And I was talking to my friend Rhonda yesterday. She was on a trip. She came home last night. We wanted to chat because we hadn't chatted in a few days. And I wanted to work on a physical thing that I was dealing with. And while we were on the phone, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been believing some things that are false. And then I like got the clarity of what is true. While we were on the phone, within a 20-minute period of time, I sensed the change in my body. And it's something I don't want to go into. It's kind of personal, but it's like I've had this chronic thing for like 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And within 20 minutes, I had the evidence of it being gone.
Wow.
And I've been experiencing all day going, I'm completely free of this physical ailment.
Nice.
Oh my God. And it's something I had come to live with, as in like it kept getting worse over 8 years. And it's kind of like it became a part of my daily routine, just like brushing my teeth is part of my daily routine. I just compensated my physicality around this thing. And I said to Rhonda, I said, you know what? It came to my attention because now it got really bad. And now it's like we're at the tipping point of I can't live with this ailment anymore. And so we talked it through. Boom, 20 minutes. Now I have a feeling, boom, the moment I changed my thinking, it changed. It's just that I didn't have an opportunity to see the evidence of it different until until 20 minutes later.
Yeah, yeah. But
the
still,
power of new thought that is pure positive energy has got such potentiality that it can blow your mind.
Yeah, well, that's pretty evident.
So whether it's firewalking, board breaking, shooting a golf club and having a ball go out the wazoo, hitting the green, or recognizing backache was an indicator, figuring out what it's about, changing the belief, or in my case, changing a belief. It's like the pureness of the thought. And when I say pure, I mean without resistance, without negativity, without doubt, concern, or worry. Just a pure thought of well-being, a pure thought of knowing the positive something that you intend or you desire. There's a pureness factor that makes all the difference in the world.
Now,
and it's like being able to just tap a board and have it shatter in two, because it's harnessed, focused, narrowed intent.
Now, of course, Abraham would say, well, any disease or any chronic condition you have is due to a previous ongoing set of thoughts, negative thoughts, that were generating this condition. Even if you weren't thinking about a condition, they were just generating that. And if we take that same idea and apply it in this case, and you're saying, yep, that's what it was, then it sounds like what you really ended up doing was releasing. You ended up releasing all of that resistance you'd built up with that attention to all that negative thought.
Oh, yeah. For me, the moment I found the falsehood in the belief I had been holding, and I went, whoa, that's false. That's not what I believe. And then I immediately knew what I did believe. And I can say this part without it making it be embarrassing for me. There was something where I went, I don't have control. And I went, that's not true. I do have control. Where did I get the idea I don't have control? And I never even found where that came from, because it didn't even matter to me. I said it out loud, but I didn't need to know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I just knew it was not true.
That kind of defeats what I've talked about in the past, how I want to find out, well, where is this coming from, or what, how do I identify that? And you just demonstrated how none of that is really relevant.
There are times that finding out the source of a problem can actually lead to clues to help you unlock what it's about, but you don't always need it. Because for me, I had such clarity in, this is not true. I don't need to know how I got this belief. I don't need to know where it came from. I know I have this belief, and I now have the awareness it is not true. And in that moment, I released a belief that had been active in me for a very long time, maybe eight plus years, probably longer.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I went, the truth is, I do have control. I'm an incredibly powerful being. I do have control. And boom, that's what changed everything for me in that area.
It also occurs to me that we'll call it a negative belief that you had that had been with you for 8 years and not serving you well, and which was, you identify it as a false belief. You said, no, that's not even true. But look at it from the point of view of a belief as a thought that you think over and over again. Despite the fact that it wasn't true, you had effectively made it true just over a course of 8 years plus. Who knows how much time before that even. And
then when I found that belief, kind of like it had been buried in a trunk, and it was at the bottom underneath, my school trophies. I found it and went, "What's this? Oh, well, I don't believe in that anymore." It's like it was an obsolete belief. Like, to my conscious mind, it's obsolete. But because I wasn't aware that it was even there, it was just running around rampant. And yet, because I had not questioned or challenged the physical thing in my world, because I had literally had it started a long time ago. It started out as something small. So small that I didn't pay attention. I just compensated. And then it got a little bigger and I just compensated more. And when I hit the point this last couple of weeks, I went, I can't compensate with this one anymore. It had my attention. And that's when I found what it was connected to, which is this belief that I wasn't in control. And I went, that's not even true. Wow. And in that moment, that belief became deactivated.
So what I conclude from all this, because I think this is really good, I love the way you've laid this out very methodically, very meticulously even. But what this all leads up to in my mind is a clearer understanding of what resistance is. Resistance is a belief, a thought that has been built up over time that we now come to the conclusion does not serve us. And releasing resistance is letting go of a belief we previously created.
Yes. And a belief can only remain a belief if you keep believing in it or you keep reinforcing it.
Wow.
And I stopped the reinforcement of that old belief last night. I went, nope, not true.
See, that really fills in the whole model for me in a way that it hadn't before. Now I feel like I understand what resistance is much better, because now I can describe it in another way. I can describe it as a thought that I previously generated and that I previously stuck with and focused on for quite a significant period of time until it became a belief. And in that becoming a belief, it was a belief that didn't really serve me in terms of what I wanted. So because of that aspect of it, that belief became resistance.
Yes.
That's really something.
Yes. And I feel like ever since I've been doing the podcast with you, I have been on a quest to better identify how do we know that we have an intention that the universe is going to respond to in a positive way, versus how do we know when the universe is going to respond to something in the way we don't want. Because I'm like, I know there's all sorts of things that we desire and that I put in my vortex, but when it's not happening, it tells me that my desire is mixed with what I don't desire. But I've wanted to have a greater understanding of, how do I know where I stand in the process? How do I know, am I really broadcasting a pure positive signal? Because if it's not showing up yet, what I'm kind of understanding in a greater way is there are things that are not showing up because things are being lined up for me, but everything's okay. Mm-hmm. There's nothing I need to do, and it's not because I have resistance. But sometimes it's because there is resistance, and I wanted to understand the difference. I don't want to wait for something bad to happen or something that really makes me unhappy to go, oh, well, I guess my energy is mixed with something resistant.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know in advance.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
want to be
yeah.
able to work it out.
Why would you want to have to put that one off? Yeah, tell me now. Let's get. I don't want to have to take the Band-Aid off one little hair at a time. I'm going to go rip the thing off and just throw it away. I'm done with it.
Exactly. And Abraham talks about post-manifestational, I don't remember the word they put after that, but it's like, that you're not lined up. You're not in alignment to your desire when there's a post-manifestational incident that does not line up with what you desire.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so how do you know when everything's a go, when everything's lined up? Well, what they say is you'll know by your feelings. And I would say that's true, except when you don't know what you feel. If you don't know how you feel or what you feel, or you're not able to identify your feelings, or you're in denial of your feelings,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of makes it a little tricky.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah.
And so that's kind of the area I've been pressing in more, saying I want more clarity. I want to have greater sensitivity to what I'm feeling. Now, I'm going to share another story that also came from my sister the other day. And I think it fits in here where, okay, so here she is feeling, bad. Her back really hurts. And remember I told you, and I started to feel really grievous and just deep sadness, where my tear ducts were starting to fill up and I was ready to cry.
Yeah.
So I didn't think anything of that for the rest of the night because we moved through it. She was on to a better place, blah, blah, blah. Saturday morning, I wake up, and just like every morning when I wake up, I am in my celebration of, Project X, my new career. It's in process. It's on its way. I've given my resignation, 8.5 more working days, and then I'm done. And it's like right before this show, I got my inbox populated with 5 emails from my HR department. You need to fill this out. You need to take the survey. You need to confirm this. And I was like, oh my God, it's so real. It's so exciting.
Yeah, sure.
So this is how I've been waking up for a long time now, with the excitement of what I see is coming and what I know is already done. And Saturday morning, I woke up and I went, oh my God, have I made a mistake?
Uh-huh.
And I started to be really worried about my money. And I went, what if I know I've been saying that I've been sensing that as soon as I exit the day job, because that was the thing that was putting a limit on my income is going to go soaring high. And I've talked about that as in, like, I believe that with 100% in me. I knew I was aligned to that thought.
That's what you've said.
I knew I was aligned to that as a belief. And Saturday morning, all of a sudden, I'm scared. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And what if I just lose it all? Well, I didn't have to be there for very long, like maybe all of 5 minutes.
That's good.
What the heck is this about?
Mm.
Well, I didn't get an answer right away. So I got into my day and I started watching some videos about, business, blah, blah, blah. And every now and then, if I'd stop to take a bathroom break, my mind would go back to, this is getting very worrisome for me.
Mm.
And after that happened a couple times, and I didn't put a lot of attention on it because I had other things I was doing, but in between, all of a sudden that thought would come back. And I finally went, okay, this is not flying for me. This is not who I am. This does not line up with what I know. So I'm like, all right. And I got like really serious. I got focused on, I'm going to get to the bottom of this now. And so I looked for, well, what questions can I ask? And I was asking things like, well, where did this come from? Because this felt like it came out of the blue. And I asked a question that I've learned from some of my friends, which is, does this thought even belong to me? Which I'll explain in a moment.
Oh, yeah, I can see where you're going with that. Mm-hmm.
And I said, does this belong to me? And I got no. And I went, who does it belong to? And it was Jennifer.
Yeah.
My sister. And I went, oh, whoa. And I went, this matches what she was experiencing yesterday. But now here's the thing. How could I feel something and have something be so real in me if I'm not a match to it? Because remember, I'm a creator of my reality, and I only experience that which I'm a match to.
That's a great question.
So I went, okay, what's this about? And then boom, the clarity came in. And it was while she and I were talking, and she was saying, I'm at this point, my income's not enough to cover my expenses. I don't know what to do. And I was wanting to reassure her with the universe has your back. Haha, remember she had a back ailment.
That's right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The universe has your back and you are supported by the universe. And are you willing to trust that the universe will provide for you? I wanted to empathize with her. And I said, well, Jennifer, you're kind of doing something similar to me. Actually, you've been doing it longer. Because I said, I'm about to release my steady paycheck that I've had for 11 years that I've come to trust on, just like you had trusted on 2 incomes in your household. You're having to trust for something different and bigger outside of your ability to do it. And I said, so am I. And I remember saying, that could be pretty scary, but I believe so much in it. But I will tell you, and I knew it as I was thinking on it on Saturday, because this is part of who I am as a coach, I wanted her to feel how much I understood what she was experiencing. I reactivated the fear that I used to have about not trusting the universe to support me.
Okay.
And as soon as I connected to that on Saturday morning, I went, oh, first of all, I only did that for illustration purposes, but I got really into it.
Yeah.
And I activated an old belief. Remember, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And Abraham says, every thought that's ever been still exists. And I proved that. I reactivated a belief that I had let go. And the moment I was aware, I'm like, oh, I'm letting go of that hot potato. That one ain't mine anymore. I know the truth. The truth is my inner being has my back. I walk in synchronicity of guidance on such a regular basis that I have no need for a safety net because that is my safety net. And Walt, in that moment, the fear was gone and I went back to being me, knowing all was well.
Well, that's interesting.
And well-being abound.
Because you just answered a question. The question being, this is something that everybody deals with. If you're working with somebody or somebody in your family or somebody that you're in some kind of relationship with or whatever it might be, somebody who you relate with on a regular basis, and that person is going through stuff of some kind, similar perhaps to what your sister was going through, and you empathize with it, how do you maintain the boundary so that it doesn't affect you? You just answered the question of how do you maintain that boundary?
Okay, and so what did you hear me say? How do I maintain my boundary?
By trusting in your inner being, by saying, oh no, my inner being's got my back. That's where the boundary is.
And I did not emphasize that to myself Friday night. And what I let be the most active thing was my empathy of, oh, I know how scared you are. I've been there.
Right.
And I did not reinforce for myself. However, that's not where I am today because I do trust my inner being has my back. I didn't do that Friday night. And that's why Saturday morning I was really uncomfortable in fear until I recognized what I had done. I created that and I uncreated it.
Yeah, that's right. In short order. And that
to me is the powerfulness of my mind.
Well, it is, and it's also just how valuable it is to align with and be in alignment with and believe in and to understand and appreciate the value of trusting who you are deep inside, because that's what the inner being is. It's who you are deep inside. When you're trusting with that's our protection. People want to feel safe. People want to feel like they're not going to get knocked out of the path that they want to be on. They want to feel like they're in control. They want to feel like when they put out an intention, it really comes true. They want to feel like everything's going to work right, and they want to feel like that other people aren't going to be able to knock them off their path. And there's the answer. That's how you do it. You do it by just trusting in your deep inside self.
And if somebody's going, well, that's easy to say, just trust in your deep inside self. How I have come to trust, someone couldn't just say, just trust in your inner being, it's all going to be fine. I had to work my way into the trust by reminding myself or allowing myself to explore some new thoughts and some new beliefs, such as everything always works out for me. Well-being is the law of the land. I'm always going to be protected and cared for. My broader self, which is my inner being, knows everything that I need before I even need it. And these are the kinds of thoughts that help to soothe me into trusting my inner being. And then I thought on them so much and I focused on them so much, they became very powerfully rooted beliefs within me. And to me, sometimes now I don't even think of them as separate from me. They are me. I've become some of these beliefs.
Which is good. It's really good. It's great. One of the things that I was looking at today, while I was being distracted to the point where I got to the podcast late, one of the things I'm not sure, I don't remember where I even stumbled across this, but I stumbled across a webpage, a blog where somebody was writing with the express purpose of debunking the law of attraction. And I mean, it's not like I really wanted to try to talk them out of it or something like that, but I was kind of curious to see, what would they say and how would it feel? And it turns out theirs was also a podcast, so they were basically just giving a little description of what their podcast was about. And I didn't really want to listen to the whole podcast, but I read the description. One of the things this woman wrote in her description was that one of the biggest problems with law of attraction practitioners is that they don't question good feeling thoughts. And I thought about that. I said, wow, because I am now so far away from the point where I would have questioned good feeling thoughts. But I remember there was a time when I did. There was a time when I doubted. There was a time when I just didn't feel like I could trust good feeling thoughts. As I look at my own evolution over time, and now I'm looking for good feeling thoughts. That's all I'm ever interested in. And here she's saying, well, no, you got to question them. I'm thinking, whoa.
For what purpose?
Well, she wasn't clear about it. I think you had to listen to the podcast to find out. But my point is how different her worldview is from where mine has now evolved to. Just completely different worldview. It shows, first of all, that we can evolve. Second, that we can learn how to apply this stuff. We can really make it a part of our lives. And third, we don't have to worry about what anybody else is doing because, heck, they're so far away from us, we can't even connect with them anymore.
Well, and if, like, you had the opportunity to see what that woman was talking about, but it didn't resonate to you, so you didn't feel drawn into what she was saying.
Not at all.
And this is a matching world. We line up with things we match to.
That's right.
And if, like, when someone says, oh, I really resonate with that, I was reading this book this week that really put a whole new emphasis on me understanding when someone says I resonate.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, so like if I have an idea, I can't see it, but that idea is actually moving with vibration within me and sending sine waves out of me, seeking something else that matches it. And if you're sitting across the table from me, Walt, or if you're on the phone like you are right now with me, it's like if there's something in you that matches this sine wave that I'm sending out from me, it starts to vibrate within you too. And then we get really excited. We're talking about an idea that just excites us both.
That's true.
That's because both of us are pulsating with this vibration that matches both of us. And that is what it means when somebody says, oh, that really resonates with me. Because this invisible vibration pulsation is actually being activated in both parties. And that's why you resonate.
Now, the only bad part about that resonation is I'm getting a resonance right now that we're completely out of time. So we're going to have to carry on this discussion on Thursday. But this has been great. I look forward to continuing it on Thursday because this has been really good. Thanks a lot. I didn't get a chance to talk about subscribing. So just go to the website, loatoday.net. It'll tell you how. Wendy, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you on Thursday.
You got it. Talk to you later.
Okay. We'll see you all later as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.